To understand the rich history behind this video, I'll begin with this quick summary of all that has transpired so far. At first, my subscribers lived in peace and harmony, but everything changed when the Holy Nation attacked. Wait. That's not right. The story actually goes, at first my subscribers lived in peace and harmony until I gave them the right to vote. This was too much power for them to handle, though, and they would often lobby for their own preferences in the comment section below polls. As tension began to rise among the voters, the conflict reached a boiling point over the decision between whether Venge or the Deadlands would be the next video topic. Repeatedly, the vote was split right down the middle as unrest in the community climaxed. Being the bold, fearless hamster that I am, I decided that the only way to ease this tension was to make a double feature episode for Venge and the Deadlands. After all, these absolute dog water areas could be covered quickly since they have very little to offer. I was wrong, though. In fact, by exploring these two different regions, I learned how to play Kenshi in an entirely different way. This guide is an account of my journey. Let's begin. Our adventure began with scouting Venge. Venge is south of the Deadlands and close to the center of the map, making it a natural candidate for base building. There are just a few little problems with hanging out there. First, there are beak things. Second, spiders, iron spiders and blood spiders. Third, there are hordes of thralled skeletons that roam around. And fourth, perhaps the most important, during the day there are these beams of light that will absolutely singe through your characters no matter what SPF their hand lotion is. On top of all these inconveniences, after taking an initial look, it didn't seem like Venge had any reasonable water or fertility ratings. This plunged me into a crisis. If I could not find something redeemable about Venge, then I would surely face the wrath of Venge's outspoken supporters. So my search for now continued. At long last, I found both water and fertility in one area in Venge. And then another one after that. Soon my map began to fill up with possible settlement locations. Team Venge for the moment was getting super hard. No, that's not what I wrote down. Team Venge for the moment was getting the upper hand on Team Deadlands. When I was finished scouting, I took a look at all the marked locations I had and decided upon this one here, since it had water nearby that I could use for my defense. I also liked that it wasn't too far away from Flats Lagoon and Stob's Gamble. I could sell hashish in Flats Lagoon and use Stob's Gamble as a place to train and collect hide from the local land bat population. Upon building my settlement, I began to understand why Venge has such a bad reputation. Attacks from thralls and beak things were commonplace. The thralls weren't too powerful individually, but they spawned in large groups, which on a few occasions overwhelmed our defenses. Some of these thralls also carried blunt damage weapons, which pierced through our armor, causing additional trauma. The beak things were less common than the thralls, I would say, but it's hard to relax when you know that beak things could roll up at any time. Once we had our defenses up, things began to calm down for a time. And the biggest issue at this point was that the death lasers throughout the day, they were really, were throwing off my groove. The only way to keep the death lasers from obliterating my character's HP bars was to keep the characters inside or give them armor with burn resistance. As far as I could tell after my research, the only light armor pieces which protect a character from burning are dustcoats and armored hoods. For heavy armor, burn-resistant gear is limited to crab helmets and crab armor. Also, fair warning, skeletons and animals won't get hurt by the sky lasers in Venge. I'm not sure why this is. Maybe because neither can wear head protection for burn resistance, but you won't need to worry about them getting air fried in Venge. Just wanted to let you know. Now, in my experience, a dust coat alone provided reasonable amount of protection from the sky lasers at 80%. But it still wasn't a perfect solution, so I designed my base in a unique way to adapt to the environment in Venge. Characters would be kept indoors as much as possible, and at the center of the base there would be cactus plots to take advantage of the arid fertility. Nearby, there would be a building dedicated to creating as many chew sticks as possible for food. Characters who were working the farm or running tasks outside would be given burn-resistant gear, while other characters could just stay inside and they wouldn't necessarily need a dust coat. I also set a few characters to the medic job so that anyone who was burned would be healed automatically. After another couple days passed by, things had been going well aside from the incident where our defenses weren't set up and two thrall groups breached the walls. Good times, good times. On the bright side, though, I have a mod that allows for recruiting NPCs, so we now have 4 headless, unpaid, and unfed turret operators. Gotta count your blessings out here. Although the thralls and the beak things seem to be the primary mobs in Venge, it's possible that in Venge you'll see iron or blood spiders, although they aren't very common. While I cannot confirm or deny if I am Team Venge at this point, I can say that this region has more to offer than one might think. You have an excellent location with arid fertility that only requires preparations for burn damage, and as you might imagine, getting attacked by other factions in Venge isn't much of an issue. While living in southern Venge myself, I wasn't attacked by anyone. I even imported my game to see if anyone would attack me, and no attacks were triggered. It was just the occasional thrall or beak thing attack. Before we move on to the Deadlands, I do want to say that obtaining the crafting blueprints for burn-resistant armor does require some upfront work. The dustcoat blueprint usually is only available in tech hunter shops, and crab armor blueprints are exclusively sold at crab raider settlements. Due to this being the case, Venge almost feels like a test of character. Will an experienced player read the item descriptions for these armor pieces and notice that the burn resistance is there? After making that connection, will they then understand that Venge is now inhabitable with the use of that specific gear? Well, dear viewer, if you're watching this video, then you've now made that connection, and you can settle Venge if you so choose. With Venge being a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one, there's a lot of pressure on the Deadlands now at this point to justify its appeal with the voters. But things did not start off well when we made the move over there. For instance, on the way, I quickly realized which of my characters weren't wearing rainbow Crocs like the others, because those without Crocs kept whining about calluses on their feet. It turns out both the ground and the rain are acidic in the Deadlands. Getting pelted with acid rain wasn't the only thing draining morale. After prospecting all around the region, we couldn't find anywhere that had fertility or water. This was horrible news. At least Venge had some farming potential. In an attempt to cope with the lack of water, we built rain catchers in the hope that we could harvest the rain and use it for hydroponic farming, only to find out, though, that the rain in the Deadlands cannot be filled up with rain catchers. At this point, I was cursing Akron and shaking my fist at the sky. Why would Team Deadlands do this to me? Why would anyone vote for me to make a base in this god-forsaken land? Rather than suffer alone, I did what any reasonable person would do. I fired up Discord and started ranting in our server about my condition. Then, like a beacon of light bursting through the clouds, I was struck by a response from Chestnut, which contained the wisdom I needed to carry on. With my short, stubby hamster hands, I began setting up hydroponic farms on the roof of a station house. Looking on in disbelief, I saw the water meter slowly rise up for the hydroponic farms. Life in the Deadlands is possible after all. And if you're wondering how I'd be able to cook without the use of water for the cooking stove, Kenshi has a beautiful loophole for that. You see, if you take a look at the recipe options at Kenshi, you'll notice that one of them doesn't require any water, the Gohan. And since rice, wheat, and vegetables can be farmed using hydroponics, there is indeed a way to make food in the Deadlands. Whether Chris Hunt designed this intentionally or this is just an accidental loophole that veteran players have noticed, I don't know. What I do know is that things like this make Kenshi worth playing. I'm over 1,000 hours in and I'm still learning new things about this game. Well, now that we can make food, it's time to start a sweatshop. Using the 2 nearby copper veins here, I set up a building dedicated to crafting electrical components. These can eventually be used towards creating robotic parts here. For power, you may have noticed that I'm using generators. That's because there is no wind, so converting hemp to biofuel is going to be our bread and butter. Before I forget to mention it, here's the map of the recommended locations for the Deadlands. These locations are based mostly on iron and copper availability, since water and fertility are pretty much non-existent in the Deadlands. I settled in this spot here because there was a flat area, nice little flat area, with a nearby pool of water for the front gate. When I settle, I try to have a portion of my base protected by natural geography, and the steep incline, the hill or mountain, whatever, at the back of my base accomplishes just that. And I have to say, once things started to move along, designing this base didn't take much time. We also have one of the probably the cruelest front gate designs imaginable. Acid water with harpoon bots ready to go. Even if an attacker did manage to get into my base, they would lose about 20% of their HP from the acid water alone before reaching the gate, and at that point a harpoon or two would ensure a KO on them. What's nice about acid rain is if an attacker is KO'd, they ain't getting back up. It's such a beautiful thing to see your enemy's vital organ HP slowly go down while they continue to sleep till they fade away to meet Narco face to face. But Paul, you might ask, with your current gate setup, your own characters would take acid water damage on the way out. In response to that, all I have to say is, who said anything about leaving? Yeah, I can say with a fair bit of confidence that the Deadlands is the best sweatshop location where you can just set and forget your characters. There's no need to leave. No faction in the game is going to mount a strong enough attack to threaten your indentured Radio Shack servants, and even if they did, what do you have to lose? It's not like the attackers steal any manufactured goods when they break in. Now, if you're worried about the enemy spawns in the Deadlands, I haven't touched on that, but there's really not much to worry about. There's really just iron spiders, and they're quite slow. If anything, it's nice to have them around for extra iron plates and electrical components. Ranged weapon usage is recommended, I would say, for them. The Deadlands is also central on the map, and is home to one of the best cities for trading in the game, Black Desert City. Black Desert City has a well-stocked robotics shop, as well as the Scrap House, which sells a wide range of research materials and weapons. No, seriously, the Scrap House is insane. You can find high quality weapons and crossbows there regularly, and you just save a ton of time buying from there if you don't want to have to craft crossbows and weapons on your own. Okay, now that we have a sense of what both Venge and the Deadlands are like, that begs the question, am I Team Deadlands or Team Venge? But to answer this question, I can't help but wonder, what do you mean by I, and what do you mean by team? I guess what I mean to say is that it's not fair to make me choose. Both regions require in-game gear and offer a significant amount of utility for those willing to adapt to their environments. They also are close to the center of the map, which provides an ideal place for laying down roots. In the face of all these similarities, how could I choose just one? Just kidding. I'm Team Deadlands for life. Those sky lasers can bite me. I'll wear an iron hat any day of the week. Don't get me wrong, Venge is nice, but with the Deadlands you have a more central location. You're close to Black Desert City, which is amazing. The acid rain is a way better defense than the burning lasers, because the burning lasers are inconsistent. Iron spiders are easier to deal with than beak things and thrall hordes. Crafting gear with acid rain protection is easier than crafting gear with burn protection. And I realize I usually don't touch on this, but it would behoove you to maybe check out the locations in the Deadlands, maybe some of the ruins and the labs, because there might be interesting things in there. Not saying that Venge has bad locations, it does have some good outposts and labs there too, but the ones in the Deadlands are very important for progressing your research. Let's just say that without spoiling too much. For those of you who've made it this far, maybe you don't feel ready to post up in one of these regions yet. If so, you might consider settling the nearby region of Shem. Shem is the gold standard for base locations, and you can always move from there to Venge or the Deadlands when the time comes. I hope to see you all in the next one, and I'll see you next time.